Hello and welcome into the LFC transfer room for another stream. Not even a debate room, is it? We're talking about Harvey Elliott's new number, Asensio, linked as well as Rabio, and I'm probably assuming Bellingham will probably get spoken about as well sometime. And Ronaldo, big news about him as well today. Joined today by Damon, Jay, and Ritchie. I'll start with you, Damon. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, it's been okay weather, hasn't it, today in England for once. So we've had us rain this week now, and it's been a bit cloudy, but it's been warm. So been out, nice beers every now and then. So yeah, not bad.
Yeah, straight back to the pub after this for me. And Ritchie, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. I know, mate. I know, former podcast buddies, aren't we? So yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Coronavirus has finally hit me. I've done well to dodge it so far, so I'm isolating at home. But as Damo said, it's all right. Go out in the garden, have a few beers. It's not all bad.
And how about you, Jay? Enjoying the lovely Scouse weather today?
Yeah, lads, yeah. All good. Had a little few walks, little few beers in the garden, and I'm glad that Salah stuff's been put to bed. So nice little weekend.
We started there because why not? Dave, because I don't think I've spoken to you about a happy Salah deal.
Oh, buzzing, absolutely buzzing. I mean, it's exactly what I want, innit? We've been waiting for so long for this. It's dragged on since December, and even before that, really. But since December, really, the negotiations started, and then we've just been patiently waiting, haven't we? It's got to the point where we got sick of it in the end. I think yesterday, especially when that Rami put that tweet out, everyone was like, "Oh no, come on!" You know, it dragged on for long enough, and then wow, a few minutes later, the news broke, and yeah, all happy.
Yeah, Richie, I've just been told then, don't know how true it is, not claims being in the know, but apparently the discussions with Salah was over. We actually wanted to buy his image rights. It's because he's never on any market and stuff at Liverpool, and that was the negotiations. And eventually we haven't got them, but he has got a 3-year deal, and apparently an addition for a 4th year as well, which I've literally been told before coming on the stream. Again, don't know how true it is. If that is the case, do you think it matters about having image rights?
I'm sure it will to the club and to FSG. You can obviously, milk as much money as they can from Salah, but for me as a fan, not really. Having the best player in the world tied down for Liverpool for at least 3 years and an optional 4th, that goes, far and above anything that we could perhaps offer with image rights, if I'm completely honest. I think that what's important as well is he's not just perhaps the best in the world, but what I was really worried about, how do you replace him? Thinking about next season already, how can you replace the best right winger in the world? And the answer is you can't. So the fact we've got him for 3, perhaps 4 years is sensational. And no, I'm sure, the people who run the accounts would have loved to have the image rights there. But as fans, I don't think we're too fussed really about whether they're included or not. All that mattered was that he signed the deal.
Yeah, and Jay, option for a 4th, smart business really from Liverpool, isn't it? Because if he does decline in the next 3 years, you're not timed for a long-term deal. But if he's still unbelievable, you can activate that year extension.
Of course it is, mate. Yeah, he's obviously our biggest earner, so I think he can play well on into his 30s the way the likes of Ramos, Thiago Silva, and Ronaldo have, because he looks after himself. But it's one of them, like you've just said, in the 3rd year, if he's lost it somehow, you don't renew for the 4th year, just let him go instead of paying him the massive wage. If he's still smashing it, there's the additional year. So makes sense all around.
Yeah, and moving on to the only true news really out of Liverpool today. I think a lot of us expected maybe Carvalho. I think it probably would have been if Salah weren't announced, but we still haven't seen his signing day. But Harvey Elliott, new number 19, Ozan Kabak, last one to wear it. And I think before that, Mane. I think that's a big step, a big statement in terms of what we think of him, Damon.
I think it shows where we're going to go with him, doesn't it? I think Jurgen Klopp liked him last season. He was straight in first team, wasn't he? When he came straight in, he went straight to first team until he got injured. So I think Klopp has him in his mind for the next 10 years. I really do. And giving him that number, I mean, like you said, the Mane number, I think is special. So I think he's planned for the next 10 years to be the one to maybe even build around. Is that good?
Rating that highly, Ritchie. I was quite surprised. I thought he would have stayed 67, then maybe took the 7 jersey when Milner went. But are you happy with him getting 19?
I mean, it looks fresh, doesn't it? On all those pictures, Elliot 19, it did look fresh. I think what I liked about him taking that is his quote when he said that when he was a lad, he had Mane 19 on his back. So to now wear the Liverpool shirt with his back at 19 really, shows how far he's come. I think that's perhaps why he took it. I thought he might stick with 67, and make that his trademark. Much like Trent has done with the 66. But alas, it's a shirt number. I think that he will probably move on to the number 7, as you've quite rightly said, if he does hit the ground running, because that's the Liverpool number 7 that is so iconic sorted for the next 10 years if he does so. So it's an interesting one, but I think to go to 19 is a good step, and also it leaves the number 10 out for someone who I'm sure we might discuss a bit later on.
Yeah, Jay, 19. I'd indicate that more as a winger, but then Kabak wore it. Do you think Elliot? I just don't associate with the central midfield number. Do you think we see him more as a wide forward, or do you think he'll be more central again?
Bit of both, mate. I think he'll get used with his versatility. Obviously, we played him on the right side of the midfield beginning of last season until the injury, but prior to that, he played right wing. So I think he's one of them. He can just fit in both sides. 19 doesn't really bear any significance. It's not a significant number, but it's a first team number, which I think the only reason we've promoted it is to show the thoughts of him being in the first team. So yeah, I imagine we'll see a lot more of him next season.
Damon, Jones only got number 17. Elliot 19. Who's going to be getting the more minutes? Pre-season prediction.
Elliot, especially. Well,
the pre-season prediction. Who do you reckon's going to get the most minutes in the squad?
I think Elliot. I think Elliot, mate. Honestly, I think depending what formation we play as well. I think if Kopp does go the 4-2-3-1, obviously Jones and Elliot can play that attacking midfield. But I think Elliott's the one that's in Klopp's mind. And we saw that last season when he played first team when he was available, and then until he got the injury, he was out of it. But yeah, I honestly think Elliott's the man for the minutes and for the future. I think he's got more talent than Jones. As much as Jones can perform every now and then, Elliott's just got a bit more.
Do you agree, Ritchie, or do you think Damon's with the large majority of our fan base who are sleeping on Curtis Jones?
There's an absolute baller in Curtis Jones. I think I wrote an article 2 years ago, actually, that forwarded to you, Matty, hailing him as the Prince of Merseyside, and I still stand by that. I think that he's an absolute baller, and he just needs minutes, as most players do. We saw Elliot actually at the start of the season. He kicked on because of the minutes that he had before that unfortunate injury against Leeds. So I think Jones just needs minutes, and I also think part of me thinks he needs to stick in a solid position. It's no good him being too deep like we saw at times in the midfield last season, and obviously that's because of the injury problems that we had there. But no player can be great if they're swapped around too much, and no player can be great if they're being chopped and changed position-wise as well. Is he, Matty? I mean, you know him far better than what I do. Do you see him more as a attacking left-hand type of player? Do you see him as that driving midfielder on the right-hand side of midfield? I certainly don't see him as a 6 that we have seen him deployed. And now I think that shows how great he is, because he did manage to play in that 6 and in that deeper role when he is naturally more attacking. But where does Curtis Jones, I suppose, fit in for you? I think Elliot will get more minutes, but certainly don't sleep on Curtis Jones, because I think he's an absolute baller. But where do you think his natural position is?
Naturally, he played more as a 10 in the academy, and then when Elliot came in, he did drift more to like the attacking left, and he was very, very good in that attacking left. Maybe I think that he could maybe nail that down as like a squad option in the attacking left this year, especially with Salah with Mane going. Then you've only really got Diaz, because I think Jota's probably going to be floating between left and the false 9, isn't he, with Nunes and Diaz? So I think that's his strongest position on the left of the attack. But I don't know if you'd agree with me, Jay, that I think with Curtis Jones is he's not confident enough to take his chances at times.
Said it loads of times, mate. Like, there's no doubt in the lad's got ability. He's got bags of it. And when you watch them under Gerrard, for the under-18s, when he was there, he just looked a cut above the rest of the lads he was playing with. Brilliant at shooting, his feet are boss. He's got brilliant feet. There was a game last season, I can't think of what it was, but he went on a run and he must have beat 4 or 5 players, and then his shot at the end was awful, but the run was brilliant. if he can get that like confidence in his game, he can end up a worldie, mate. But it's like Ritchie said, he needs minutes to be able to do that. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. He's better on the left side for cutting in and shooting, whereas Elliott's been on the right side doing it the opposite way, essentially cutting in on his left. So I think because the left side of the midfield isn't really up, Elliot will get more minutes. But there's no doubt in Jones' ability, mate. He's got bags of potential. I just hope he fulfills it and starts believing in himself a bit more.
If both succeed the potential, Damon, we've got a very exciting left and right centre midfielder on our hands, haven't we, for the next 10
definitely. Absolutely, definitely. I mean, Jones, like I said, Jones has got it. It just doesn't show it enough. I think that we recognise the Porto game like he did last season in the group stage, and that game he was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And if he carries on that sort of vein of form a little bit more often, and like Ritchie and Jay said, though, it does need a bit more minutes, whether that's a loan deal or in cups a bit more often. What Klopp doesn't use him, it does need those minutes to really get his confidence and shows what he can do. But at the moment, he's doing like 1 in 10 games, and that's Liverpool. That's not enough. I think we need to see a bit more. But if we do get the potential out of him and Elliot, wow, what a pair we've got in them both, like you said.
Hey, that's a good question. I do have. It seems like Klopp prefers to use midfield with defensive qualities, and those midfielders that is attack orientated suffer because of this. But that's you, Richie, because that's interesting, because Gini Wijnaldum was a good goal scorer for his national team, but not so much for Liverpool. Do you think they do suffer?
And also Naby as well. You look at Naby for Leipzig, he's a different animal now. Yes, he's had injury problems and stop starting and inconsistencies at Liverpool, but he was deployed far more attacking as well. So I think I think it's a fair assessment. I think that Jones is obviously more of an advanced playmaker, likes to roam into that attacking position. But the midfield's job for Klopp and for most of his teams has always been to be the legs, because the likes of Lewandowski, Goetze, Mane, Salah, Mane, I can't get my words out, Salah and Firmino, they've always been the goal getters. So perhaps you can't just be heavy metal football, and Klopp has moved on from that. So I think that's a really good point that Helly has made there. And yes, perhaps that we do suffer in midfield. I think the only midfielder really who was utilised in the attack was Philippe Coutinho under Klopp. We haven't really seen that level since, but I don't think that the midfield have actually been allowed to do that, because, you look at Jones and you look at Elliot and perhaps Keita and Wijnaldum, quite rightly you've said there too, they probably could get goals if they were allowed to, but Klopp likes them to sit and be the workhorses. Now, if they've got to do that in that Klopp midfield, that's exactly what they've got to do, because that's what the manager wants and that's what's worked so well for him. So I think it's a really, really good point that's been made. But, that workhorse midfield, especially with the bombing fullbacks, that midfield's got to get across, not just up and down. They've got to move side to side to cover Trent and Robbo, or hopefully Calvin Ramsey and Tsimikas there too. So I think a workhorse midfield has always worked for Klopp. It's worked wonders for Liverpool. And perhaps, that is why Jones might struggle in that attack. But that being said, it didn't look to hinder Elliot in the first couple of games of the season.
Do you boys think that we need another maybe Fabinho type player next to Fabinho to allow that to happen?
I think that's why Tchouaméni was the perfect signing, because he could play hold and he could play midfield, he could play left, he could play right, he could play centre back, he could play anywhere really. But I think we need, because I think Fabinho, with all his world class, probably is the best holding midfielder in the world. He missed a few games this season, didn't he, through injury?
Yeah, I mean, Henderson stepped up and did brilliantly, and I think Henderson can play as a double pivot there. I think Thiago's good enough to play as a double pivot. I probably won't want Thiago in that 6 role on his own. But yeah, I think if you're going to have, and listen, we can debate the formation all we want with Carvalho coming in. He is a number 10, no matter how many times you see him on the wing on these, little makeups of he is predominantly an attacking midfielder. Now, if that's the way that Liverpool are going, and having a 10 with Núñez in front, maybe Firmino drops into a 10 role as well, like he did for Hoffenheim. That's perhaps where Curtis Jones might find himself as well, if Klopp is going to eventually deploy this double pivot.
On that, Jay, do you think it does, all signs point towards us changing the system this season? I think that'll benefit the likes of Jones and Elliott more, because of what Haley or Cora was speaking about. We do prefer more defensive-minded midfielders. Do you think a system change is only going to benefit the midfield options that we have got.
Yeah, because I think the signing of Nunes means you have to slightly change because he isn't a false nine. He's not someone who's going to drop deep and link up play. It's not part of his game, to be honest. He's more about running in behind or powerhouse and pasture. So I think there will be a tactical tweak, definitely, if he's going to be a starter. And I don't think you sign someone for 65 mil if they're not going to be a starter. So I think there'll definitely be a tactical tweak. And to be fair, I think one of them three that we've just mentioned, one of them will probably get a loan move. Because if we did go to 4-2-3-1, I think that number 10 role would be between Jones, Elliot, Carvalho, and arguably Firmino. So you probably don't need 4 players that can cover that position, which makes me wonder if one of them will get a loan move. Not Firmino, obviously, one of the younger boys. So it'll be interesting to see.
The only thing I do know for sure is that Jones isn't going out on loan. I know that for sure, but I wouldn't mind Elliot at Fulham, you know.
I don't think he will, though, if we've changed his number. What's the point? There's no point in saying, oh, Elliot, new number 19, and by the way, he's going on loan to wherever. Do you know what I mean?
It's just
also, who's there to cover for Salah as well? You know, I know that Ox is rumoured now to stay, but surely you'd be more beneficial if that's Elliott's natural position is for when Salah doesn't play. And I know it's once in a blue moon that he doesn't play, but like surely you'd want Elliot on that right hand side to eventually fill Salah's boots whenever he leaves, whether that's 3 or 4 years or even 6 years time, because that boy's shredded. He looks like he could go on, you know, for another 10 years. So surely it makes more sense for Elliot to stay and learn that right hand side.
I think it makes sense as well to push Salah, because this year when he come back from AFCON and was poor, he knew no one was dislodging him. Who can play there?
Yeah.
So I think having Elliot was... Go on, Richie.
No, I was just going to say, and Ox, you know, as much as, you know, he's great for the dressing room, etc., you know, that's a massive drop off from Salah to Oxlade-Chamberlain on that right hand side. I think Ox's days are numbered on that right hand side, and I'd love to see Elliot actually have a go there as well if that's his natural position.
Be interesting. Before we move on to Asensio and that, we'll speak about United, but quickly first of all, Jen, St. Kitts got to step up this season, and Naby is another one on make or break season. I'd argue it for Naby. I think it is make or break from this season. But Curtis Jones still is only 21, so I think he's probably got a few more seasons of being able to prove his worth, where Naby Keita was a £50 million sign, and I think that's fair to say. Put 20 years, Naby Keita make or break this year.
He could go for me now, mate. I wouldn't be asked. I'd sell him now. I honestly wouldn't care. The thought of him signing a long-term deal worries me. He's had 1 year where he stayed fit and he was still inconsistent, so I don't get the big pull towards him. I'd sell him. I'd go to Dortmund.
They should use him for Bellingham, I think.
Yeah, that's what I've said that for months. Go to Dortmund. He's played there for years. He's well thought of there. He's used to the league. Just go to Dortmund and say it's 50 million and Naby Keita. They've got 50 million to spend and a replacement already there.
Yeah, but that's a massive drop off from Bellingham to Keita. They probably won't go for that deal either.
I don't see it either, but I think it's worth testing the water with.
Yeah, I mean, right now I know what Liverpool's finances. You know, I've literally just finished writing an article about Jude Bellingham, and you know, we're building a new stadium. We've just broke the transfer record potentially, and we've just broken the infamous wage structure. You know, so they are spending the money there. But that being said, I'll chuck 100 million plus Keita at Bellingham.
Yeah,
but don't you think there's still got to be money there, hasn't it? Because ultimately we've spent 90 million and brought. If we sell Nico Williams 65 back in with is that 50, 60, something like that.
Yeah, and plus we don't know what's going on with Phillips and with Ben Davies as well. So there could be money to be made there. Listen, I don't, you know, I'm torn because I don't know whether Liverpool are done in the market. I don't know whether the Telegraph even came out today saying that Liverpool are now looking to offload players and not bringing any in. I don't know how much I believe that, and also, why, if you are looking for someone, why would you announce that anyway? It makes no sense, does it? You know, if Liverpool are in for a midfielder, well, you can add 20 million onto any midfielder in the world right now if people and teams know that you're looking for a midfielder. So, you know, Liverpool are very good at spinning the media. And, you know, if we're looking for a midfielder, we would have to certainly look for a midfielder if Keita would go. I think it makes sense to extend Keita's contract on the basis that it will hold his value, but nothing else really. I mean, listen, even if Keita does extend, that contract that he's going to be on isn't going to be worth that much more because he's not earned that much more, has he?
No.
So it's surely to me would be common sense that if he's not going to leave this summer, to extend the contract but not put too many thousands of pounds on top of what he's already on. Because quite frankly, I think he would probably tell you as well he's not earned it.
What could you get for him though, even if he has a 4-year deal? What price could you realistically ask for Keita? Because I think 30 million would be a push.
I think if you're selling him to Germany, you could push a bit more based on what he can do in Germany. He's only really flopped at us. And you wouldn't what he can do, like the Prem's a lot harder than Germany, innit? But his numbers in Germany was a joke.
In Germany, he was brilliant. He was a completely different player. Just at Liverpool, mate. He reminds me of like an old man, just chasing a game. Sometimes, honestly, when he's good, he is great, but it's too few and far between for me.
I think we should send Dortmund a YouTube compilation of him. I mean, they'd be loving it, wouldn't they?
To be fair, he'd have a good compilation at Liverpool.
Yeah,
he'd have a good compilation at Liverpool. He's done bits at Liverpool.
Good. I always
you could make anyone look good on a compilation vid. Anyone can look good on a compilation vid. You could make
world class. He was the next on me on his compilation vid.
That's what I mean. Anyone can look world class. But they're not even worth watching them videos. They're really not.
This player though, I'm worried about more than anyone departing this summer because the Jews all know he's on 60 grand a week.
What?
Yeah, Ben Davies on 60 grand a week.
What for?
So they're saying he's only going to Celtic, but they've just got Carter Vickers, so they're probably not going to go there. But with someone like Ben Davies, who's average, and he's on 60 grand a week, who's going to pay them wages? And for him, doesn't he take a pay cut?
He's never even played, has he? Poor boy.
Never.
At United looking for a centre back.
He'll probably, yeah, I think he'll be all right as well there, to be fair. Everyone else wants out, so he might want in.
60 grand a week, though, for Ben Davies.
Maguire,
Mad. But speaking of United, anyone could take this. What do you think of the downfall on United today? Frankie de Jong staying. Apparently, Ronaldo's off. It's all gone to pot, hasn't it?
But only Ten Hag walking away from complete meltdown and Dean just saying, do you know what? Thought it weren't going to be this bad.
It's class. It's honestly like, the only reason why Ronaldo went there, and it's not because he had a love for Manchester United over Manchester City, it's because Man United were going to pay him more than Manchester City. He knew that Haaland was going to go to Manchester City. He wasn't going to be the main man. And let's be honest, probably most people thought that after the window that United had with Varane and Sancho, plus Ronaldo, they should really have done a lot better than what they did. Now, I'm not complaining that they didn't, because nothing in the world pleases me more than seeing Man United go into complete capitulation. But that being said, I genuinely think he thought he was going to be United's saviour and that he could win silverware. And he's done it at a lesser club, and Messi's done it at PSG. So surely he'll win the Ballon d'Or. And now that's all gone to pot. And he realises actually Man United's not the place to win silverware at all. And Sancho and Varane haven't lived up to the hype. He wants out, and he's 37 years old, and he wants to add to that ever-growing list of trophies to become the best player in the world, or the most decorated player in the world. And to be fair, I don't really blame him. I think he's better than Manchester United. I think that he deserves better than Manchester United right now. Ten Hag is a project. He knows that Manchester United are going nowhere in the next 3 or 4 years. They might add a bit of silverware every now and then, but they're certainly not going to be the steamroller that they once were. So for me, I think Ronaldo, it was a really poor move from him. And I think it was bad judgment that perhaps he thought that he could win far more at Man United than any of us perhaps thought that he could. But, whatever happens here, it's certainly interesting, especially because I'm seeing the rumours of Chelsea. Just imagine that. Imagine if Chelsea not only poach Frankie de Jong, but they also poach Ronaldo straight from under Man United. Woof.
I think the signing for Ronaldo at United just sums up them in the last 10 years, and it wasn't really thought of. It was just a big money signing for shirt sales. I mean, the fans lined up in the shirt to sign the shirt longer than he's been at the club this season. So it sums him up. It sums him up, and I think it's hilarious that is off now just because they got Europa League. I don't know what he was expecting, to be honest. I honestly don't know what he was expecting. Did he watch United before and come into it and think, "Oh, I left that club"?
Money. He was expecting money. That's all. But Eddie, the comments about stop talking about United. we're talking about this, to be honest with you. I think most of us have probably grew up with United fans taking the piss out of us. So having a chance to sit there and laugh at them losing their god in Ronaldo and Frankie de Jong is worth it. It's funny. Well, Frankie de Jong, the picture that got leaked, Jay, with his missus, didn't look very happy, did he? Or flying to United anyway.
I don't see why you would be. He's playing at Barca. I know Barca have obviously fallen from their grace, but they're still Barcelona and they are still in the Champions League. So why would you want to go to Man United? That mate, like we're talking about Ronaldo and that, and how bad United season was. Imagine Ronaldo weren't there.
Yeah,
the amount of last minute winners he got, equalisers, match winners.
You take them out 15th.
Mate, honest to God, like they'd have probably been somewhere like 8th or 9th, genuine, because he won them points on his own. And don't get me wrong, his performances weren't great. They weren't. But he popped up with the goals when you needed them. And even in the Champions League, they should have went out well before they did. But he pulled them out of shit time and time again.
If it won for him, they'd come bottom of that group. Young boys would have
What was that?
I said, did they come bottom of that group if it won for Ronaldo?
Yeah, and Villarreal. Villarreal was the same in the last minute one. He scored loads of last minute goals, and that's the thing about him. He just pop up for the big moments. So it's crazy to think where he'd be without him.
It's also crazy to think they'd only have Anthony Martial as their recognised central striker next season if he does go. Because, again, it's not really the market now to be buying centre forwards because one very lucky club have already snapped up Darwin Nunez. Another club has snapped up Erling Haaland. There's not that many centre forwards out there. Now, I saw somebody earlier said, straight swap for Lewandowski. Ronaldo wants to go to Bayern, we'll have Lewandowski. I'm sorry, what's in that for Lewandowski? As if he's going to accept that. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll go over to Man United, yeah. It doesn't work like that. Football doesn't work like that. So, you know, they're in the mud. And listen, I know that it's a Liverpool show, but you know, Man United and Liverpool belong in the same breath. They're two of the best clubs, if not the greatest clubs in the world. And for us to be that far ahead of them now, and for them to still be in turmoil and still be in demise, and for us to be accelerating forwards, and we're talking about the Jude Bellinghams of the world, or the Barellas and the Nunezes, that shows how far Liverpool have come under Jurgen Klopp. And that's the measuring stick right there.
Yeah, because you can see how desperate they are. They had a video on the United Twitter, and loads of going off on Twitter because they were passing the ball. They're like, look how slick it is under 10 ARG. And it's like, they're passing the ball. Anyone can do that. Literally passing and moving. It's ridiculous.
Over the Ronzo.
Yeah, ridiculous. But we'll move on to Asensio. It seems like it's a rumour that won't go away, to be honest with you. He's been linked quite a few summers. It might be one of them rumours who he's always linked, never signs. Start with you, Damon. Would you take him?
Yeah. I would for this. Yeah, I would just because of his versatility. I think the fact that I can play out wide and in the middle. I think Salah needs someone pushing him, doesn't he, every now and then. And I think knowing that someone like him is behind him, not pushing for a place, but at least knowing that he can't drop off because he can get replaced by someone half decent. I think that could help Liverpool a lot this season. Honestly, yeah, I'd take him. Yeah.
What you, Ritchie, for them reasons, like Damon just said, I'm a bit sold in a sense of I do feel as though Salah, though he signs contract one of the best in the world, have a bad few months after AFCON last year, so it can't do. Look how much Robbo and Costas push each other. It can't be any harm bringing someone like Asensio in, who's a proven winner, come from Real Madrid, just won the Champions League, obviously. Won a few of them. I think he won 4 of them while he's been there. So he's proven winner.
Yeah, he's won a good few, hasn't he?
It's no brainer really, if the money's right.
And that's the issue, isn't it? His wage demand, the amount of time he's going to want to be playing. He's coming from Madrid, who's paid him very well over the past few years, and he's not getting regular football, which is what he wants.
He's not getting regular football.
So, you know, for me, it doesn't make a great deal of sense from a business point of view, but it also doesn't make sense from an Asensio point of view. So, not for me. I don't think he's got the legs to run in a Klopp system. He's certainly not a presser, and I don't think he would fit that well. I think it would perhaps be. And again, you know, I hate to bring them up, but it would perhaps be United something where, oh, look, we've got this really good player here and we're just going to buy him for the sake of buying him because he's available. Whereas it doesn't really fit for me too much into that Klopp system. For me, again, his best position is a 10, I would say as well, really, rather than a winger. He's not got the pace, has he, to be cutting inside like the Salah and the Diaz is. I don't think he's got the pace to really worry defenders too much. He's been a bit part player at Madrid, I think, for that reason. And for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it would be a bit of a square peg in a round hole, but I'm obviously happy to be proven wrong. I just don't think I will.
Just had a quick look, then he's on 138 apparently at Madrid, pounds, that is, so probably about 150,000. Would you take him for that money, Jay?
I wouldn't be disappointed if we signed him. I wouldn't be disappointed if we didn't. I think both lads have made good points, to be honest. Damo for pushing Salah slightly, but I don't know if Asensio is good enough to push Salah to the point he'd be worried. But he is versatile and can play in the middle. But I think Ritchie made the point, if you signed Asensio, you would literally be doing it to sign a squad player for this season and not the next 3, 4, 5 seasons. So I think if you got him on loan, it'd be all right because he's just doing a stopgap type of thing. But I'd probably lean a bit more toward Ritchie in terms of it doesn't make that much sense. If he's on 140 now, he's going to want at least 160 for a squad player. Nah, doesn't make much sense, to be honest. And we all say he's versatile. He's barely played the game for Real Madrid in midfield. In actual midfield, he's played 10 on right wing, but he doesn't play as an 8. So, nah, for the money and that, I think it's one of them. You're just making a signing for the sake of it, which is something United or Everton. Surprised Everton aren't into them.
Yeah, I just had a look down when Ritchie said all his pressures, Damon, he's only in the 7th percentile for pressures, so that's not a Liverpool player at all, is it?
I think
It's
I'm
a Man United
more
one.
just the fact that Salah hasn't got anyone pushing him. I know he's got Elliot, but I don't think he'll push Salah. I think if Salah drops off, at least someone's there, sort of thing. I think it's more of a desperation from my sort of area. I'd rather someone else. If it was either him or nothing, I'd take him, if that makes sense.
Him or not, and Ritchie, would you take him?
Not for the long term, no. I think if it was a 1-season loan, absolutely, but not for the long term. He's going to want to, he's 26, did you say? 26, 27. He's going to want a decent contract because he should now be in his prime years. He's going to want regular football that Liverpool can't offer him. So for a 1-season loan, absolutely, it does make sense because, he could be the stopgap if we're not going to go back in for a midfielder. But in the long term, for me, I think I would rather save the pennies, as FSG as that sounds, and perhaps go big next summer.
And just quickly on for you, Jay, I'm going to ask you your thoughts on Rabiot, because I don't really want to spend too much time on him because he's garbage. He's linked every summer because he's a Liverpool fan. He's never going to sign, but it's a dry day, and I think the next 10 minutes should be spent speaking about Bellingham. So quick one, Rabiot.
I was going to say that to you, mate. It's one of them. He put a picture up on Instagram a few years ago of Anfield with love hearts, and ever since then he's been signing, which he's not. He's never gone over. He's not our type of player. He's on ridiculous wages. And I don't even think he's young anymore, isn't he? The latter end of his 20s now.
Have a look now.
He's about
I'm
27.
sure when we were last linked, he was about 25, 26.
That's what I mean. And it's been a few years since.
27.
How old?
Just turned 27.
I thought he was older than that, to be fair. But no, that's never going to happen. It's just one of them, like you said. He's posted about Liverpool before, so he's going to sign for Liverpool. He's not. It's like the lad that Atalanta Elliots. He got a Liverpool tattoo. So that week, Liverpool were all in for him, of course, when we're not.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. He's not good enough for Liverpool, so he's not signing. If he does sign, I'd be disappointed. I'd be disappointed if he signed. Genuinely.
Don't see it.
But before we go, Jude Bellingham. I know we're speaking about him all the time, but I think it's more doable than anyone probably thinks, to be honest. Like, the same person who told me that Mohamed Salah was signed on Friday has said Liverpool have played on Dortmund's toes and Bellingham wants to sign for Liverpool. So the fact is, I'll go to you with it, Ritchie, because you've just done an article. The fact there's a price being stated by Dortmund shows that they are willing to sell, surely.
Yeah, and I've literally, it's going in the drafts, and it will hopefully be live tomorrow. So do give it a read and disagree or agree with it. But listen, Dortmund have said that they don't want to sell him this summer because they've obviously lost Haaland. But Dortmund have also said that for 120 million euros, Dortmund will sell him. So the cynic in me is thinking, well, if you're putting a price tag on something, that means that you are actually willing to sell. So Sebastian Kehl, Dortmund sporting director, if that player is not for sale, why does he have a price tag? Now, the elephant in the room is, again, not knowing Liverpool's finances, not knowing how much money they've got in the bank for transfers, etc. But let's liken this scenario to Jadon Sancho, who was at one point valued by Dortmund at 100, 110 million, only to move to Manchester United for 85 million a season later. Could Liverpool run the risk of him perhaps being a little bit cheaper? Or do Liverpool actually run the risk of him actually being way more than 120 million euros after a good World Cup and after another good season, and when Dortmund actually do want to sell? So for me, I think pulling the trigger now makes a lot more sense because there's going to be way more sharks swimming in that ocean. And that valuation is not going to stick at 120 million euros. So if Liverpool do have the finances to pull it off now, and if Jude Bellingham does want the move now, which is, again, speculative at best, why on earth would Liverpool not do that? We know that they've got the money because they said that they wanted Tchouaméni and Nunez, which indicates that they've got a lot of money to spend for the right player. Now, Bellingham is absolutely the right player. So if Liverpool want Bellingham, the argument to be made is now is the time to strike before A, his valuation hits like astronomical levels, and B, more clubs like Madrid will have more money, like Barcelona activating this lever, like perhaps Manchester United and Manchester City will have more money. Liverpool don't get involved in bidding wars. We saw that with Tchouaméni, especially the fact that Tchouaméni didn't really want us anyway. He only really wanted Madrid. So, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because it's a risk that the Reds are faced with, but I think it might be a risk worth taking.
Yeah, and he said, I'm not claiming to pin in the know or anything like that. Just as the person who I know who said Salah would sign on Friday has said that Liverpool are pushing for him and Bellingham's pushing for us as well. That's all I know. I'm not saying I'm in the know. I've just been told if it doesn't happen, don't put me head on a stick because Bellingham hasn't signed. But I think that's the important thing, isn't it, Jay? With like what he's alluded to, we was going to buy Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz. I think we will forget about that. And Tchouaméni this summer. So money's there, isn't it?
There's a few things with it, lad. I don't see how Bellingham gets cheaper. And there's going to be a lot more people in for him next season. So for me, this season is the perfect opportunity. Other teams have had other priorities this season. Next season, most of their priorities is going to be the centre of midfield. De Bruyne is 31. Real Madrid have already sealed Camavinga and Tchouaméni. If they got Bellingham, they could dominate Europe for 10 years with them three in the midfield. Vinicius Junior up front. They probably will sign him back in the next 3-4 years. I imagine that will happen one day.
Haaland's release clause in his Man City contract is that he can move to Madrid in 3 or 4 years as well. So
exactly, exactly. So for me, I think that's why we have to go for him this season instead of next season, just because there's a lot more people going in for it. And you and me have spoke about this a few times, Matty. If we want to spend 90 mil on Tchouaméni, we obviously have identified we need a central midfielder. That doesn't go away by signing a number 9. If you need a midfielder, you need a midfielder. Signing Darwin Núñez doesn't change that. Now, we've spent 65, 90, whatever many million you want to call it on Núñez. We'll make that back and more this season by the time Phillips is gone and potentially Oxlade-Chamberlain. The money we've made from Mane, Minamino. So technically we haven't spent anything. So the money has to be there. We must have had a budget before we'd even signed Núñez. We must have had a figure that we can spend that season. So if you recoup that on player sales, that budget's still got to be there. So the money for Bellingham has to be there. And I think we'd be missing a trick if we didn't at least test the water with a bid, because then even if we offer, let's say, 80 million in Dortmund, say no chance, it's then putting it on Bellingham to say, look, I want this move. And then it's a bit easier to negotiate once you've already tested the water. It's much harder for Bellingham to go to Dortmund now with no offer on the table and say, I want to move to Liverpool. There's no bid on the table. Yeah. If you go in with a bid at 80 million, it might not be accepted. But you planted the seed in Bellingham's head, then they want me. And then he can talk to Dortmund and be like, look, I want this move. It just it starts it all, if you see what I mean. That's why I think it's better to that now than next year. We could miss out on him like we did Tchouaméni.
Yeah. Go on, Richie.
No, I was just going to add as well that, you know, what you said about Bellingham wanting this move as well. Even if we do bid now and let's say, okay, Dortmund, you want 120 million euros, we bid that and they still reject us. Well, then that also plants a seed in Bellingham's head that Liverpool wanted me first, and Liverpool put up the demands that my club wanted. And I'm not going to kill too much of a fuss now because I'm still 19, I'm still plying my trade, and you know, I would hope that his ego isn't big enough to think he's bigger than Dortmund anyway. But when it comes to next season, well, actually, Liverpool wanted me first, and I'm going to be loyal to them. You know, it also helps in that situation too. So even if the bid is rejected, what's the worst that's going to happen? You bid for Bellingham and got rejected. So what? You know, This is the player that we want. So, you know, planting the seed, as you quite rightly said, is very important in a midfield that actually, if you look in world football, there's not that many great midfielders who are going to be available next summer. So Bellingham will be a sought after commodity, and he will be a player that everybody will want, especially even if he has a half decent season and even if he has a half decent World Cup, because A is English and B will be 20 years old, and C, his ceiling is going to be ridiculously high.
And I think he's half the final piece for Madrid, and because Modric has probably got, I know he's just signed a new deal, but that's probably his last deal. Then Bellingham will replace Modric.
And you look at Madrid, who have just, you know, spent quite a lot of money on Tchouaméni, and you know, they've got a very good team, but they perhaps don't have the money right now for Bellingham. We know Barca don't have the money right now for Bellingham, and that's not a priority for them anyway. And we know that Madrid and City and Manchester United don't have the money as right now. Man United are obviously tying up with Frankie de Jong. Chelsea are always going to be in there because they're run by oligarchs, same as PSG. But Liverpool would be in pole position if Bellingham would become available on the market this summer.
Yeah, Damon, Halo makes a good point here, and it is the point where that nobody knows anything, because Halo is the stat man on these streams, you know, everything about finances, and he was quite shocked at the Salah deal. So with all journalists saying it's not going to happen, do you reckon there's any comparisons to the famous Paul Joyce and James Pearce that Thiago will never sign? Do you think we are done? Do you think Bellingham can come in?
I think the opportunity's there. Ritchie and Jay are absolutely spot on. I think we'd be stupid not to at least try and tread the water. I think the lad clearly wants us, and we clearly want him. I mean, there's clear indications that Klopp wants him at this club, and Bellingham, it just fits. It fits perfectly, and I think to get him this summer would be the best situation, because, like these lads said, next season there's going to be other clubs in for him. His price is going to go up. He could have a good World Cup, could have another good season, and then that boosts his price up to what is 120 million now. What's it going to be next season? I mean, it's going to be ridiculous money. We're talking about not paying for like Haaland, players like that for 100 million. We're not going to pay for that for Bellingham next season. I can't see that happening. So this season is the perfect chance to get him. Does he want Liverpool? Yes. Does Liverpool want him? Yes. Can Dortmund sell him? I do believe they can. Everyone's got a price. And people saying Dortmund will get rid of Haaland and Bellingham in one season, but they've done it before. If the price is there, if they pay the price and they can bring in early enough, if they can bring in a replacement for him, they'll do it. And I think they'd be stupid not to at least try. And let's just see what happens. I think there's a chance there, and I believe we need to take it.
It does feel for me. I was going to say, it just feels a bit of a now or never, and I'm a little bit panicky about it because of all of these things that we've said. And Dortmund have already replaced Haaland with Adeyemi, which is a great signing. Dortmund are no fools, by the way. They are fantastic at just, you know, bringing in these players and making them into, you know, £100 million players, and that's what they've done again with Jude Bellingham. So, you know, I know that people are asking for a Naby Keita type deal, but the thing that we have to remember is that Keita was rumoured to have a release clause in his contract coming into the year afterwards for the amount of money that we paid for him anyway. And now what that did, the reason why they accepted our bid was because it gave them a whole year then with that money to get the Naby Keita replacement. Dortmund don't need to accept that. Keita had a release clause in his contract, whereas Bellingham doesn't. And the important thing to know here, Dortmund would be foolish, and they are no fools, to accept 120 million euros or less just to keep him for another year, because like we've all said, he's going to be worth more than that. So the idea and the notion of a navigated deal doesn't really make a lot of sense from a Dortmund point of view. And listen, Sebastian Kehl, he knows how to run a football team and he knows how to make transfers work, and that would not be one that works. So I do think, you know, a deal would have to come in, and it would have to be for now.
Jay, do you think, like what Ritchie just said there about with Bellingham, if England done the unthinkable, I hope they don't, by the way, just for the record.
I hope they do, by the way, for record.
If they won the World Cup, Bellingham probably becomes close to a £200 million player if he starts every game, doesn't
he? Yeah, but I don't think we have to worry about that, like. No, do you know what? You've said this a few times, Matty, about can't sell Haaland and Bellingham in the same year, and you've always alluded that you can't. They've sold Gertz and Lewandowski almost in the same season, 2 seasons. Sebastian Kehl.
And as well, in the same year, they sold Gundogan and 2 other people in the same year when I done the video, and I looked into it.
There was loads.
Was it Kagawa?
This is the thing. Sebastian Kehl come out the other week because the fans are obviously upset about Haaland going, and he said, we'll replace Haaland. He said, we'll replace him with Adrian. He went to when Adrian leaves, he went, we'll replace him. He said, that's what we do. He said, we replace players. He said, we're Dortmund. At the end of the day, they're just players. And it made me think, you probably already know you want after Bellingham anyway. Even if you don't sell him this year and you sell him next year, they'll already have their eye on 2-3 players that they want to replace him. That's why they got Adrian done so soon. They were negotiating for ages, but everyone knew it was happening. So that's why I think you can't test it this year. Just to add to what we've already said, to be honest, I think it is the perfect time to go for him.
Elliot, I think he could potentially be the Bellingham replacement at Dortmund, to be honest.
Who?
Florian Wirtz. I think, although he's at Bayer Leverkusen.
He's a forward, though, isn't he?
Yeah, but he plays a lot for Bayer Leverkusen in that midfield, but more attacking in the midfield. So it depends really, because maybe he looks at football as a whole now and thinks, well, if you're a 10 now, there's not really many teams who play with a 10.
No, there isn't.
Probably to go and play in that midfield, but I think I do agree. I think they have got a few lined up who they would want to be replacing.
We were linked with him last year, but I think it was like end of the year sometime. I think there were reports going around that was spoken to his parents about it as well. So
before his injury, he looked unbelievable.
There's a few decent midfielders in Germany, to be fair. I mean, I never want to speak on Neuhaus again. I think Ritchie will echo that, but he's a decent midfielder as well, to be honest with you. I think if he finally signed, all the content we've done for like a year on him will go bang, to be honest. But yeah, we'll leave it there. But go round, just all start with you, Damon. Are Liverpool done in the summer window, in your opinion?
What a question. There's like 5% in me that I think they're not. I'm 95% think that they are, but there's that 5% I'm trying to hang on to that they're not, and that I think that could be hope more than anything.
What you, Ritchie?
I think we've got a few weeks yet of perhaps Keita and Gomez renewals and Williams/Phillips/Davis exits before we could really know. But I don't see why we wouldn't be done if those deals don't get done. But I just, it's so difficult to tell, isn't it, with Liverpool at the minute? It really is. And listen, I would rather have it no other way. I don't want all of our laundry aired out to the world. And I don't want to be reading Liverpool need a midfielder, and that's come from official sources because of all of the reasons that we listed earlier. Liverpool is saying that they're done. I think I'm probably in that 5% where I think they're perhaps not. And the only reason for that is purely on the basis that Dortmund have named their asking price.
How about you, Jake? They say we're done. The Ox is still here, so he's off.
Fucking better day. It might be wishful thinking, but I think we've got one more surprise in us. And the main reason I think is because whenever we do sign people now, it generally is a surprise, like the Carvalho deal. When we signed Diaz, Carvalho just, I don't know where Liverpool are signing Carvalho, but the reason I think it is, I don't think Liverpool would have announced the Salah contract if that was the last big action of the window, because you'd save that. That's what I'd do. If I knew we're not getting anyone else or we're not trying, I'd say, right, hold off on that Salah news, because everyone's going to be pissed off that we haven't signed no one else. Wait just before the City game and we'll announce the Salah contract because it'll give everyone a high again. So I think the timing of that maybe means that we are going to move for someone else, just because if it was me, I'd save that if there was nothing else coming, just because it is such big news. So I don't know, got a little sneaky feeling maybe one more little treat or surprise, hopefully.
I didn't think that like Darren. Now I'm even more. I've went from like 95% certain we're not done to 100% certain, because in January we done that, didn't we? We left a few contracts, and last summer we done it as well. Left a few contracts till the end, because Liverpool are famous for only being able to renew contracts in the summer and not in the middle of the season. But yeah, we'll leave it there anyway. If you're on new round here, there's 86 years here. I can guarantee all of you are not subscribed or like this video. So go leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out a lot. We stream every single day at 7:30. Loads of transfer window news still left. Pre-season starts next week. I think we play United on the 12th. That's a week on Tuesday. Is that the first game? I think it is. So we'll be doing watch-alongs for that mixture of me, James, and Louis. So yeah, I'm doing a watch-along. I've been held at gunpoint. I'm only joking. But yeah, if you're new around here, don't forget to leave a like, rate, and subscribe. But yeah, nice one for Damon, Jay, and Ritchie, and we've been LFC Transfer Room. And